Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with DrinkABeerandPlayAGame, and today we're checking out The Punisher for the PS2. Little disclosure, this was a game that was really close to being on my top 20 list. So let's take a look.
Released in 2005, this was developed by Volition Incorporated and published by THQ. Rest in peace. It also came out apparently on the Xbox, the Xbox 360, and Windows. I didn't know about this. But then again, I do my research off Wikipedia and I don't care enough to do more research. Ha! Anyway, this game is kind of based around the movie of the same name. And you know what? It actually stays fairly close to that while also throwing in a shitload of more stuff. This game will surprise you. Let's talk about why.
This game went for a very particular graphical style, and I think they pulled it off very well. It's kind of a comic book meets realistic approach, and for a game that's as violent as it is, it still depicts all the executions and all the shooting in glorious detail. Now, right off the bat, the Punisher, all the models, they all look really well done. But the show stealer for this game is these execution style kills, which can range from just approaching an enemy close and shooting them in the face or stabbing them in the face to some of these very specific highlighted areas, which Jim will get into a little more at the gameplay. But when you do these executions, they look excellent. So in the old style like I always used to, here's a little montage of the majority of the kills like that in this game. Keeping all that in mind, I gave it an 8, Jim gave it a 7. And as far as beer, I'm just going to add 1 for some of you out there who might think this is a little too violent.
Alright, the sound. A surprisingly good package. So, let's go with the music first. And while I don't really think it's anything memorable, it's really orchestral and I guess appropriate would be the word, but it also has these moments of extreme violence put against classical backdrops, and I'm always a sucker for things like that. The voice acting in the games, it can be a little bit hit or miss, but for the most part, it's pretty good. And they actually got Tom Jane to come back and do the voice acting for the Punisher, which is awesome.
Got so much hardware in them, someone will patch them together again.
Oh boy!
Besides that, the sound effects in the games are fine. All the guns sound different, which we enjoy, and the explosions are big and crazy, and just everything you would expect from a Punisher game. So we gave the game 9s. As far as beer goes, you really don't need any. This is a pretty damn good package.
Well, be prepared to hear me say something you've heard me say many times before. The control is something you really need to play to understand what I'm going to try to say to you guys. But for a third-person action shoot-'em-up, it's exactly what you would expect, yet it's not as crisp as you would want. So your basic controls are like any other third person. You have your shoot, you have your zoom in button, you move around, you have an action button, and you have a special melee button. If you click your bumpers together, you go into Punisher's Berserk mode, which Jim will touch upon once again. And that's kind of it. You do have a dodge button, but it's pretty simplistic. I mean, the goal of this game is go around, kill everyone, and sometimes there's specific objectives, but it's pretty simplistic. There's some innate feeling, though, that there's a little bit of a lag, like when the Punisher jumps to get out of the way. It almost feels like there's a slight delay to it. All the shooting feels crisp, and they even added in, for depending on what type of gun you have, an additional spray, so it's nothing you haven't seen before. But like I said, it's a game you really need to play to understand. We still think it controlled absolutely fine, just wasn't perfect. So we both gave it 8s. And I'm just going to add 1 beer for my inability to coherently express my thoughts on why this control is not perfect.
Alright, the gameplay. At the end of the day, this is really just one of those third-person action game, run-and-gun shooters that you had a lot of during the PS2 era. But what makes this game so unique, in a way, is just how faithful it is to the whole Punisher universe. Brian's already gone into the glory kills, and they are awesome to do, but the special interrogations is a cool mechanic. With normal thugs or especially marked ones, you can interrogate them to get more information about a level, to get little flashbacks to Frank Castle's past, or to make certain parts of the game easier, besides looking cool and giving you some health back when you do them successfully. There's just a ton of action in this game, and while the first couple levels can be a little boring, by the third or fourth it really kicks in and you get what makes this game so fun. Actually, one of my favorite little parts was this one level where you start off and you're at a funeral and you know what's going to happen. You know it's going to be awesome. And you're just sitting there waiting for Frank to pop out. And once he does, oh boy! It's just a game that gives you, it's basically murder porn, but God is it murder porn in the best way. When it comes to the options in the game, you have galleries that you can unlock. Every level you get medals for your performance, for how fast you do, for how good your accuracy is, for how many people you kill, or for also the little secrets from Frank's past that you unlock too. It all kind of comes together in a really cool way, which can lead to more unlockables from each level that you can use later on. You can change your loadouts before the level, you have an upgrade system where you can use points to make yourself stronger, give yourself a grenade launcher, or even have the ability to get a little bit of health back when you kill a guy, which is really good for the later levels. Overall though, this is everything you would really want from a Punisher game, and we decided to give it 7s. As far as beer goes, I'll add 2 beers. 1 for it being everything you want from a Punisher game, and 1 for not having Kevin Nash voiced a Russian.
Ow! He didn't even say anything in the movie, he just yelled.
It would have been nice!
It would have.
Yeah, so ha.
The originality is really tough for us to do because, like Jim said, this is just another game in the sea of third-person action shooter games, but there's still some things that set itself apart. The biggest being the interrogations and the special execution points throughout the levels. Now, we're not sure, but to our knowledge, this is one of the first games to do it, and many other games adopted the environmental kills later, like Sleeping Dogs and a few other games, but this felt so original. On top of that, there's a certain dark humor with these kills that not a lot of games share. Some games do it really purposefully, but look at some of these kills. Like he's about to hit the guy with the gun, the guy pulls back, and then he just shoots him.
Right.
What?
There's a big snake.
Yes, there is a big snake.
He's big.
Damn it! Get your mind out of the gutter!
Damn! No.
But there's just tons of examples. Even something as simple as stabbing a guy in the face, it kind of just comes off funny between the voice acting and the way it's done. It's a tough thing to sell to you guys. If you play the game yourselves, you'll know exactly what we talk about, but you can find humor in some of the deaths in this game. So, we both gave it a 4, and as far as beer, I'm not going to add any. This game did exactly what it needed to do, and I don't care that it wasn't the most original thing in the world.
For playability, I can keep quick, because it's not like there's any different storylines in the game, but there's a lot to go back and do. So, like we mentioned before, there's all the unlockables, there's all the upgrades, there's all the comic strips that you can unlock by interrogations. It's just a bunch of content for you to go back through if you really want to 100% the game, and like a lot of games, you can always set higher scores. So, with that being said, we gave it 5s. And as far as beer goes, I'll just give it 1 beer because maybe the upgrade tree could have been a little more complex than it was.
Overall, as I mentioned at the beginning of this review, this is probably one of my favorite Marvel games, and it almost made my top 20 list. It is stupid fun, very repetitive, but it's one I never really got tired of. When we decided to review this game, when I replayed through it, I didn't find myself that bored, and it kept me laughing throughout the unique ways you can kill all of your enemies as the Punisher.
Yeah, and I'll admit too, I didn't really have the highest of hopes coming into it, but the game did impress me, and surprised me with how fun it is.
Now granted, there's only a handful of Punisher games out there. This is clearly the best, and to be honest, for a game that might not offer that much in variety as far as what you do in the levels, there's 16 levels, and it takes something like almost 18 hours to complete. It could go a little faster if you just run through the levels, but that's really not that bad for a third-person shooter. So keeping all that in mind, I gave it an 8, Jim gave it a 7. I obviously have some nostalgia because I grew up with this game and I've played it so many times. It's definitely not a perfect game, and I'll never try and defend it as it is, but man, do I love it.
Also, it's a decently cheap game, so if you don't have it for your collection and you like Marvel, especially the Punisher, we'd probably say it's definitely one to track down.
And when we combine all of our scores together, it rounds out to a 7.2. This game is clearly above average, and detractors might harp a little bit too much on the repetitive nature of the game or the over-the-top violence, but that's kind of the reason why we love it. It's mindless fun, and it's something that doesn't take itself too seriously.
It's the Punisher. Man up, pussies.
Damn right. When it comes to the beer pairing, I'm going to go with one of my favorite quad ales out there with the Weyerbacher Blasphemy. This is a delicious beer, but it comes in at 11%. So just like with this game, you're going to have to man up a little bit and be willing to drink something a little stronger. The outrageous violence mixed with the overall action will pair really nicely with a beer that you're going to have to take your time with but learn to appreciate at the end of the day. But remember to drink your beers and play your games responsibly. As always, guys, thanks for checking out this video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure you give us a thumbs up, leave some comments, or better yet, why not subscribe? Till next time, guys, cheers.